Hey y'all, I'm back again. I was just thinking about something the other day, and it ties into that McGlockton shooting that occurred a few weeks back. And I was always taught growing up two main things that pertains to this situation. The first thing is that you always try to avoid conflict whenever you can. My parents always taught us that if we're ever in a very tense situation, to always try to find a way to get out of that situation without resorting to violence if possible. Try to be the bigger person. If you know that you're wrong about something, admit that you're wrong and move on. And sometimes even when you know that you're right about a certain situation, it's best to just let bygones be bygones and call a truce somehow. Always use tact and diplomacy and try to draw a truce. Another thing is this here, and this is a big one. We were taught to keep your hands to yourself unless you're defending yourself from a physical attack or defending someone that you care about, or another person from a physical attack. If you're in a verbal dispute with someone or an argument, then that doesn't warrant you putting your hands on that person just because you don't like what they may have said, or you found what they may have said offensive or disrespectful. That's no reason for you to put your hands on them. That doesn't justify or warrant you resorting to physical violence because the person may have called you out of your name, or insulted your mother or something along those lines. I remember when I was about 18 years old, and I was a passenger in my ex-boyfriend's car. We were just out joyriding one day, and I'm not sure if he may have unintentionally cut these guys off in traffic, but they pulled up alongside us at a red light, and they started swearing at us, and they were telling my ex-boyfriend to pull over so that they could fight. And he was about to do it, but I told him it's best that we just ignore them and keep going. Since they're so bold, it could be that they have a weapon, and then they got you outnumbered. I'm not going to join into the fight being a female, and they got you outnumbered. It was like two or three guys in the other car. It would have been, so that would have been 2 to 3 against 1. So I told him, let's be the bigger people and ignore them and keep going. We just ignored them, and eventually they just drove off and went on about their business. I found that whenever someone is so bold, or sometimes when a person is very aggressive, it's because they know something that you don't know, or that they may have an advantage over you that you may not be aware of. For example, they may be carrying a weapon. I grew up in a household full of guns. My father had probably about 5 or 6 guns. Rifles, shotguns, handguns, you name it. But the one thing that he always taught us, don't allow people to provoke you to violence so easily. And that's the mistake that unfortunately Marquise McGlockton made, and I believe that Michael Drejka or Drejka made in that situation. I believe that they all acted rashly. I mean, if you go back and examine that surveillance footage, from the time that McGlockton's girlfriend pulled into that parking space up until the time of the shooting, took probably less than 3 minutes total, which shows me that these people just reacted out of anger and without thinking. And that whole situation, like I said in the previous video, it could have been avoided if the girlfriend hadn't have pulled into that parking space to begin with. What I find crazy and what I find odd is that I saw her commenting during a press conference that her fiance, McGlockton, did nothing wrong in that situation. And during another interview, shortly after the shooting, she made the comment that she can park anywhere she wants. And I think that therein lies part of the problem. Some people seem to believe that they're above the law and they can do no wrong and they can't be corrected and shouldn't be corrected. You know, I don't know these people and I don't know their backgrounds, but that's part of the ghetto and self-entitled mentality of some people, that they're above reproach and can't be corrected, and if you say or do anything to challenge them, then they're ready to either argue with you or resort to violence. In this situation, it cost Mr. McGlockton his life after he shoved Drejka or Drejka to the ground. And by no means am I saying that McGlockton deserved to pay for shoving that man to the ground with his life. What the thing that I'm saying is that you have to be careful about, when you choose to use force or violence on people, because some, like my parents always told us growing up, that some people don't fight fair, and some people don't believe in fighting at all and getting their hands dirty. They'd rather just pull out a knife or pull out a gun and just shoot you and kill you rather than risk injury by engaging in a fist fight. Florida is a castle doctrine and stand your ground law state. So that means that the law allows people to use deadly force if they have a reasonable fear or belief that their life is in danger or that there is a threat of serious bodily injury and harm. Retreating is not required, hence standing your ground. I don't know, maybe Michael Drejka did have a reasonable belief that his life was in danger, but from what I saw from the video footage, I think that deadly force was not required, because if you pay close attention, you can see that once the gun was pulled, even if you could even see there was this one guy, a white guy, coming up to investigate after the altercation started. He started to walk up as if he wanted to intervene, but then once Drejka pulled out his gun, he turned around and he was like, it's about to go down, and he got up out of there. At the same time, Marquise McGlockton began to back up and to back away. He also started to make a turn, but Drejka didn't give him a chance to make a complete turn to get out of there. Some people are arguing that he should have ran or should have put his hands up, but just the mere fact that he began to back up, that's an indication right there, as far as body language is concerned, that he was beginning to retreat. And he hadn't continued his assault. He pushed him down to the ground violently and then stood over him for a few seconds. Anyhow, this all could have been avoided if the girlfriend hadn't pulled into the parking space in the first place. And some people are blaming her for McGlockton's death, and I think that is so unfair. It's not her fault that he died. As a matter of fact, if he was using his head, he probably should have suggested to her that she park elsewhere. It's like he was a complicit in her parking in that handicap space. For other people to be blaming her for his death, that's like an insult to men. It's almost like saying that a man is not capable of thinking for himself and making logical and mature decisions, and that a woman is always going to be responsible for his actions if he makes a mistake or does the wrong thing. So to me, that sounds, it's pretty insulting whenever I hear people blame women for the outcomes of men's lives, or, for the decisions that men make. I understand that some women can be quite manipulative, but it doesn't appear that any form of manipulation. Whole thing happened so fast. How could you claim that she manipulated him into doing that? He was a full-grown 28-year-old man. Another thing that I was thinking about that situation is that if Drejka had stumbled upon a different group of people or a different set of people, it could have easily went the other way, with him ended up being dead. Someone commented in my comment section that it's legal for him to question someone about, this is not an exact quote, but I think they said something along the lines of it's legal for one person to question another person about handicap parking. Well, just because something is legal doesn't mean that it's a sensible thing to do. He could have easily stumbled upon a group of people who have a different type of mindset, a killer's mindset. Who's to say that that woman, if she had been armed in that particular moment, would not have pulled out a gun and shot and killed him for fear of her life? Think about it. He approached a woman sitting in her car with her children. He's a complete stranger. From what I can see in the video, they were engaged in a heated argument. So who's to say that if she had not had a gun in that moment, that she would not have pulled out that gun and shot and killed him? So I don't think that was a very bright move on his part, confronting a complete stranger over a parking space. And suppose that the boyfriend was carrying a weapon. Things could have turned out differently for him. But he ended up being the person to come out of this alive. If he's prosecuted for murder and convicted, it may just cost him his, a shitload of money in legal fees and possibly his freedom if he's convicted. And in my opinion, he was looking to start trouble, because there were some reports of him pulling out a gun on a group of teenagers like 4 or 5 years ago during some sort of road rage incident. And the police came out and did their little investigation and found that there wasn't evidence to make an arrest. And he never admitted to pulling out the gun, but then when they searched his vehicle, they found the weapon. So they ended up letting him go. And then just a few weeks ago, I remember reading that the owner of the store had called the police on him for harassing customers over that same handicap parking. And then there was another incident where he had threatened a truck driver over parking in the handicap space and had allegedly called the driver the N-word. So this guy seems to have a history of bullying type behavior. So I believe that he was looking for trouble. Now, I don't know if he was necessarily looking to kill someone, but he seems to have this sort of bully type of mentality. I don't know. It remains to be seen at this point whether he'll be charged with any crimes. I was looking at this news report with an interview. It was an interview with a former prosecutor in Florida, or assistant state attorney, and she was saying that many prosecutors in the state of Florida do not like the stand your ground law. It makes it very difficult to win a case, or even to prosecute sometimes, many times. And then check this out. I was even reading another, if I can find that article, I'll post the link in the description box below. But I was reading this article where the NRA says that there's nothing in the stand your ground law that would have precluded the sheriff in Clearwater, Florida, from making an arrest in that situation. That's a pretty interesting development. They believe that he may have made the wrong call by not making an arrest. So all we can do at this point is just sit back and watch and wait and see how things turn out. In spite of what the public may feel should be done, the prosecutors, and if this does go to trial, the judge and the jury in this case has to follow the law. The outcome is not going to be based off the court of public opinion. It's going to be based on how the judge interprets the legislation and case law. It's going to be based off of how a precedent and how other judges ruled in similar cases. So we just have to sit back and wait and watch and see what happens.